Dun, dun. All right, how are we doing, April, on the technology side? Hello, everyone who's signed in for our Servant Leaders of Wisconsin meeting. Just checking with one of our technicians, April, to make sure that we are good to go. April, how are we looking? April or Nathan, how are we doing? Not hearing you. Want to make sure we're live. We're good? We're good to go. All right, how's everyone doing? Just want to do that test. I am Joe Kiedinger, and I am excited to have a dialogue with you today and some panelists on a conversation around organizational health. And before we get into it, this is brand new to us, as it's new to just a lot of folks around the country. This will be our very first live Servant Leaders of Wisconsin session. And it's a little nervous. So you get a little nervous about it. You get excited about it. Sitting in a room by myself with a camera, I usually feel your energy. I feel you right there. I'm going to feel you in different ways, right? Virtually. We have over 80 of you folks who have signed on to join us. I really appreciate that. And we welcome you all to our session around organizational health. And I can't tell you, I am jazzed about this subject. I mean, it just fires me up because it really helps organizations grow and thrive. And it brings industry to the next level. And it's part of our human DNA. Like it's in our hearts, it's in our minds. Like this is what we're all built to do. And we have to get on it and practice and so forth. Usually if we're live, I'd ask show of hands, how many of you are new? And typically we usually have 50% new folks around. So I thought perhaps we would kind of give you a brief history of Servant Leaders of Wisconsin. It's an acronym called S.L.O.W, and some people, tease us and go, slow, like I want things to move along. Well, it means to slow down, to speed up. So we are hoping that this next 60 minutes to 70 minutes is going to be meaningful in your life. It's going to share with you some insights. It's a way for you to work on your business, not always in it. It's a way for you to slow down, gain some perspective with like-minded people. And that's what it's all about. And so it started around 11 years ago. This is our 11th year, where Festival Foods CEO Mark Scogan brought in James Hunter, who wrote the book The Servant, to a local theater here in Green Bay. The Meyer is a live theater event, and it seated about 1,000 people. And then we packed the place. And I said to Mark, I'd like the conversation to continue. Is it possible that we could keep this moving as we get the momentum going of servant leadership? And so we had a panel discussion similar to today. We had panel discussion of all different types of folks who are from different walks of life on the journey of servant leadership. And that led into an old-fashioned fish bowl where you throw in your business cards and so forth in the bowl. And we've been having quarterly servant leadership meetings ever since. We are not a 501c3. This is just from our hearts to reaching out to the community and like-minded people getting together and having a discussion. So Prophit has been the managers and we take that as a serious responsibility to continue the conversation quarter after quarter, year after year. And we're honored to do it. And we're excited to do it because we get to meet a lot of great folks like you and a lot of great folks on our panelist discussion today. So that's a little bit of the history around Servant Leaders of Wisconsin. We meet roughly quarterly. We are very flexible in it. We just announce when we'll be there, and you're going to now be on our mailing list if you haven't been. If you're joining from a different source because you heard it from a friend, you are now going to be on our list. So we'll let you know when upcoming events are happening so you can attend. And you can also watch this again on our website. Bring a group of people together perhaps at your office and go to Prophit.com. That's Prophit.com. You can go on workshops and events, and it will be pre-recorded within 24 hours. That recording will be on that site. and you can watch it and share it with other people. And we hope you do, because we want the movement to keep growing around servant leadership. All right, so that's a little bit of a history about our movement. And I hope you don't mind, I want to tell you a little bit about Prophit, because we've evolved. We've evolved over time, and it has so much to do with this journey. It's been a profound impact on my life personally, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my children. It's made a profound impact on our company, how we do business, the types of people we decide to work with. And so I want to share a little bit about that journey. In 2002, our company started as Joe Kiedinger Advertising. So that was 18 years ago. Good Lord, is time flying. And so we handled TV and radio, because I was a television rep. And we started that company. That morphed in 2007 to Prophit Marketing. Be a profit to make a profit. It was all about the historical profit, learning from others. We studied great marketing from other folks, including Disney and Zappos, Men's Warehouse. We had access to great entrepreneurs. And you know what? In all these discussions, as I was studying what makes great marketing and how can we help companies grow, it kept coming back to culture. They didn't say, oh, our ads, start this way and they go this way. They didn't say our website opens with animation and that's what really works. I never heard anything like that. They didn't say that. They said, you know what? We have to get our purpose of why we exist locked in. And we just make sure we repeat that over and over and over again. I remember George Zimmer when he owned Men's Warehouse, and that's when I talked to him in like 2009. He said, Joe, I dine with all of my store managers and assistant managers. He said they all fly into California. We book a hotel for a month and a half in these little 3-day chunks so that I can dine with the folks who are running these stores. He said, I only own 3% of the business, but they want to work for someone. They want to connect with someone. And so that's what we do every year. We need that for connection. People are built to connect. And that is all around organizational health. And organizational health is so much more. And that's why I like the term versus just culture, because organizational health is about culture, but it's also about strategy and execution. It's about hitting goals and setting goals for the company and finding ways to get there. And so that's why I'm excited about having a conversation around organizational health. And so let's get into that. Let's start the conversation. So who is Prophit Co? We are a communication company, always have been, focused on organizational health. We dropped the marketing and we put co at the end because it encapsulated great marketing is everything. It's really organizational health. It's not just the marketing side. Yes, we still do marketing. We always start with purpose. And people connect with why you do what you do. They don't connect with what you do. And so we are a communication company focused on organizational health. So I want to just say thank you for allowing me to share that, because we just changed our name in February. And we still do marketing, and we're still focused on culture. We do culture, strategy, and marketing, always have, and we feel Prophit Co better represents that journey into organizational health. So I want to describe a little bit for you who are kind of new to this organizational health lingo and this language, and what is it? Well, think about your whole body, right? When you try to get healthy in your body, you have to eat right. That's one thing, and then there's movement, and then there's for many a spiritual side, right? Your spirit. This is mind, body, and spirit. Think of health as it has to encompass all those things. And so when reflecting on health, we're reflecting on what could be the pillars of organizational health. And we've identified these 4 pillars in no particular order, by the way. It's all up to the journey of the organization. But if you know what encapsulates health, you can get after it. So if you know that exercise is part of a regimen, you can now start an exercise program, right? If you know eating is something you have to get after, you can start that. So let's talk about OrgCom, organizational communication. This is about identifying your company's purpose and gaining clarity around that. Identifying where are we headed 3 to 5 years from now? Like, where are we going? Identifying strategy and key initiatives that are so important. The top 3 things that we have to get after. Not this busy stuff you do every day, the things that you have to do, but the things you get to do to move the company forward. And that's providing leadership tools and technology to track all of this growth. Number two is intrapersonal communication, understanding yourself emotionally. Like, how are you emotionally wired? Understanding that a lot of times you hold yourself back. Even if you're running the organization, you are holding yourself back in many ways if you don't unpack what's really going on. This is about vulnerability and humility, because the truth is people connect with that. Like, let's just be real, right? And let's just be honest. And that's what that's all about. It's about shutting that negative voice in your head down, which you hear. You're not good enough, like your doubt, your self-doubt, the sabotage that sometimes we get in our own way. That's what intrapersonal is. It's about emotional intelligence and making sure you can be the best version of you. And then we have interpersonal communication. That's another element of org health. That's about understanding the people you work with as human beings, putting people on the right seat on the bus, making sure that they're not, that negativity is out and positivity is in. I don't mean some Pollyanna positivity deal. I'm talking about, like, let's not be dramatic. Let's be real on who you are. I'm real who I am. And let's talk about how we can properly work together. And it brings really dignity into it. Everything we do is surrounded with dignity-based communication. And so interpersonal is really connecting the people. And then purpose-directed communication, the fourth pillar, is really how do you communicate your purpose company-wide? How do you get it so your employees get it over and over and over again? What kind of process are you putting that through? How are you getting your purpose out to your clients? Best way is the website. That's a great way to start, but even digital and social media. Like, people want to know what you stand for. And that's how we approach marketing. Everything we have has to bring your purpose to life in some way. So those are the four pillars. I'm really excited to introduce our guests because some have participated in many, not just with us being their guide, but they've done their other things as well. See, everyone finds the tools that it takes to be successful. And so everyone you're going to see today has went on this journey in their own way. We've had the honor to be able to work with them on part of their journey. And so I want them to share their story, but everything they've done contains to either one or multiple of these pillars. So now I'd like to introduce our panelists as we move into this organizational health conversation. Here we are. We have a glitch. First, we have Mr. Dan Fallacy. We call him the budding entrepreneur. Dan, I've had the privilege to get to know a year and a half ago as we began him on his journey. And it's interesting, he's a one-man a small business in the culinary space, and he's already practicing organizational health. I mean, that's where it can start with you. So Dan, maybe you could share with us, just tell everyone what you do, tell them a little bit about your business and what you help clients do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Joe, for the introduction and letting me participate today. Yeah, it's interesting. When you and I first met, I thought I knew what I did. Clearly, I knew what I did, but it was hard for me to share what that was with the rest of my industry and colleagues. And so I thought it was really, really interesting. The time that we spent together, although brief, it was incredibly effective and allowed me to really, stand on those pillars that you spoke to and really break through that part of me that was holding myself back. I was not realizing as an independent operator that I really am that face to what's happening and highlighting who I am and doing that with some humility and pride, because obviously my experience has brought me to a certain point where I have enough industry knowledge. So, the business shortly after you and I kind of wrapped up that segment of self-work together has skyrocketed. And literally, I mean, this should be an infomercial, right? Because it was so incredible.
You are awesome. I'm going to pause right here, Dan. I'm interrupting you because I just want you to tell the folks what you do. You're amazing. I love you. And
oh, fantastic. Okay, well, let me do that.
We'll get into those wonderful stories. I'm so grateful. But tell us, what does Fallacy Culinary Consulting do? What are you all about?
Yeah, so Fallacy Culinary is really helping food manufacturers unleash the power of their products' potential. So it really, it could be, as Joanna has, mushrooms, or it could be a piece of sausage, or it could be a spice that isn't typically used in one certain way or another, that I bring that to life into multiple applications and give diversity of that food product into applications, whether it be into retail or into food service manufacturing for sales at restaurants.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Okay, we'll get into your story as we go. Love your passion, buddy. Then we have the gentleman who represents small business. We have Paul Northway, who's the president and CEO of American National Bank. It's a single location located in the Fox Valley here, Wisconsin. And Paul is so connected to the small business community. Paul, why don't you just kind of explain the specialty of your bank and a little bit about the amount of employees you have and so forth.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me today, and looking forward to the panel discussions. Our bank is a niche bank. We are heavily focused on small business. We've been around 27 years. We work with from startup, very entrepreneurial, spirited business owners at the startup stage, all the way up to companies with 100 million in revenue. So we provide all the traditional banking services and products, but wrapped around that is the type of advice and consultation and heck, friendship and everything else that can only come and only be delivered by a true local independent community bank. And that's what separates us from a lot of other financial institutions. We have over 30 employees. And we seem to be growing. I think as I'm on this call, I think an offer was going out to a new leader in our organization this afternoon. So it's fun as our company grows, and we seek to really, one big goal is to remain relevant in what we do. We're looking to culture, and that's great that we're here today because we'll continue that dialogue. But as we look to remain relevant, we are looking to culture to help us achieve that.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. And last but certainly not least, we have Joanna Richardson. And Joanna she's the human resource manager of a large manufacturer, Monterey Mushrooms. She is out of Loudon, Tennessee branch, or I should say the manufacturing plant there. So Joanna, tell us a little bit about Monterey Mushroom and the environment in which you work and the employees that you serve.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you having me join today. We are the industry leader in fresh mushrooms, and this facility has been here since 1971. Our company corporate office has been there for 49 years. And at my facility, we have over 500 employees. We have about 75% that speak Spanish only, and we have quite a few employees from other areas as well with diverse backgrounds. So it is a very large group, very diverse group. Every week, we pick, package, and ship over 500,000 pounds of mushrooms. A lot of those are white mushrooms, some of them are brown. So you might have seen some at the local grocery store. The bulk of our business is retail, but we also have some food service as well. So during this time, we have been providing essential business because we are the food provider for the nation, but our company is national and international. And I've been the human resources manager here for over 15 years, and it's been a very exciting journey. So I'm
Awesome.
glad to join everyone today.
Well, we're glad to have you. So let's get into our discussion here. First, I want to define what we're going to do today, folks, is define organizational health and then unpack it in different sections. So we love this definition. It's an organization's ability to function effectively, to cope adequately, to change appropriately, and to grow from within. So we're going to unpack that in sections, and that's why it's bolded there, to function effectively. Let's get into it. Yes, communication has never been more important than right now. And so we're talking about functioning effectively, and I'd like to toss this one out First to Paul, what adjustments had you have to make to continue to function effectively? And have you found the efficiencies you didn't expect to find? We were forced to function effectively during this COVID crisis, right? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, everything happened pretty quick mid-March, and I think a lot of companies, ours included, had to learn how to work remotely. Fortunately, we were set up fairly well ahead of this and had been testing it and working remotely a little bit. Not because there was any pandemic preparation, but just we thought that it made some sense. So we found it to be a heck of a lot more efficient than we would have thought. And it's never perfect, but we found ways to make it work. We wrapped around, and this is where it gets good, right? Because we talk about some of these pillars, and we have a pillar. It's our purpose. Joe, you guys helped us with that. Our purpose is really simple as a business bank. We help small business owners beat the odds. Wow. Who thought a couple of years ago when we were identifying, uncovering our purpose, that 2-3 years later, here we sit in one of the greatest challenges in our generation and then some. And so we've rallied around that. We had to figure out a way how to work remotely, but continue to deliver to the client. And remotely, I'll tell you, our bank was one of many banks who stepped up during that whole PPP process to help business owners keep staff employed. We figured out a way to do it. We ended up processing well over 200 loans. I think the final number was $34 million. That's Northeast Wisconsin, $34 million that went back into the economy to help preserve wages, preserve jobs. And I don't think we would have been able to do it without the right people and without people who really, really rallied around our purpose. And I think that's the biggest thing when you talk about efficiencies. Here's what I'll say. I've heard this also during the pandemic. Boy, the pandemic's going to kill our culture. Every company's saying it. What's it going to do to culture? I'm here to tell you, and in our group, as a leadership team, we talked about it early. Our culture is what was going to get us through this pandemic. And that's exactly what's been happening. So did we find efficiencies? I think we just leaned on culture.
Yeah. Well, Paul, you've just done such a fantastic job. I remember when we first met, you were like, this is my focus. This is my responsibility, my duty as a president and CEO to help define this and help encourage it and enforce it. And that you have, and you're absolutely right. Here we are in the biggest crisis probably of our existence for sure, or anyone's. And you're right, culture brings you through it. Culture is what helps you adapt. And when you're helping beat the odds, boy, all those loans you process, you were helping people, small business win. And I know they're grateful. Joanna, here you are in a large manufacturing facility. You don't have the ability to work from home, certainly maybe a percentage. You grow mushrooms. I've been to your plant. And what I find fascinating, folks, is that once they have it all germinated, I think that's the term, a mushroom grows like in a day or two, and they keep chopping and then they grow and they chop. It's really fast. Anyway, that's completely charged. It's exciting stuff. Joanna, back to the question. How did you, when you're working really with farmers?
Yes, well, this was definitely probably the most chaotic time that we've ever had in my time here. And of course, we had to put up barriers and make space. One of the neat things that happened was staggering some of our breaks and lunches, but we actually found that our operations were a little bit more efficient because we've had these schedules for so many years and that we never really thought about changing them. So in order to have the space, so that was something neat that happened. They said, hey, we're going to keep this even after all of this is over, hopefully soon. But what was interesting as far as adjustments, through the years, we've always done what we needed to do to get the mushrooms picked. We have to get the farm picked. Sometimes we have more people. Sometimes we have fewer people. We have people step in. But I think I was really proud of our team here with what happened. We actually had, back in May, we had a couple people test positive for coronavirus, which triggered a testing of our entire facility. So that was a really scary time because we really didn't know what was going to happen. But unfortunately, we ended up quarantining quite a few people, and some of them were all in the same department, all the same supervisors, and a lot of that was our harvesting department. But what was really awesome, it was awesome to see happen, was we had people stepping up to go pick mushrooms. We had our CPI manager here in jeans and a shirt going out and checking on the beds and trying to clean and that kind of thing. And that was really neat to see because it just showed us, we have those times where people can step up. And, we had the other side too. We have some leaders that were participating in some gossip and drama and things that wasn't so effective. But we had those people that also stepped up, and it was so awesome to see, like, we are going to do whatever it takes to get these mushrooms picked. And what was really awesome too was from our corporate office, people kept telling us, you guys are essential, you guys are important, you're providing food for the nation. And I know that Paul mentioned about the purpose. That's powerful when you go, wait, I'm essential. My team is essential. We're providing food for the nation. So when you go in that, you're almost in the crisis mode, like we have got to do things because people are depending on us, and we knew that, and we're able to come together. So that was really awesome to see, especially during that time where you think, what are we going to do and how are we going to get through this? And I think it just made us stronger as a group.
Yeah, I'm not going in to pick mushrooms. I'm going in to feed the nation. Completely different
That's right.
mindset from a motivational standpoint that gets to the heart and helps motivate and drive people. And the brevity of the situation at hand that spurs that even stronger. Dan, as an independent guy, did you find any efficiencies through this? Did you find that it was easier to connect with clients, or did you find that what did you find how as far as functioning effectively in this world?
Yeah, it's interesting. The dynamics that I have always worked remotely actually became something that I was able to educate and share with my customers. I work with some very large manufacturers, and so they all had to go remotely where they've used to having that culture and that physical face-to-face like most people have. So I found it was actually giving them efficiencies based upon how I operate independently from my location. So it kind of went the other way, and it helped us bring presentations together. So, national presentations to multiple people at one time, just like what we're doing right now on Zoom interfaces or other technological ways to share and to expedite. So it kind of went the other way. I think it was me sharing with my customers some efficiencies that I've created for myself. So that was kind of probably the neatest thing was bringing some value to them above and beyond what I typically would have shared.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I'll agree with you too, Dan, being primarily in a consulting business myself, it really taught people how to use technologies where before you travel, they said, well, we're going to teach them this Zoom thing, and you're going to meet with them. And we've been able to connect with far more individuals than we had in the past. All right, let's go into our next subject under this is Smart versus Healthy about Patrick Lencioni in the book, The Advantage. In the book, The Advantage, he talks about smart versus healthy. And if you want to get any book on org health, this is the one to do, in my opinion. We use this as our foundational bedrock with clients and helping them understand the journey and the elements. So they talk about smart businesses have great strategy, marketing, finance, technology. You have to have those things and work smart. And then they talk about healthy businesses. Healthy businesses as minimal politics, minimal confusion, high morale, high productivity, and low turnover. And you must be smart versus healthy. There have been studies done on the Organizational Health Index that have tracked companies who had considered to have a high OHI count, that they outperformed their competitors by 3 to 1. And so, it just shows that when people are all aligned and you have that passion working forward towards a common goal, healthy organizations outperform non-healthy ones by a lot. So let's talk about the poor behaviors. There's minimal politics, minimal confusion, high morale, and high productivity for healthy organizations. So there's a single element that helps companies avoid unhealthy behavior, and that is communication. And so maybe throwing it to you, Paul, how has communication changed And when it comes to communication, is it easier to remind people of what you're all about? Did you have to make any adjustments from a virtual to an at work, from an at work to a virtual environment?
I think a few things about communication. One of them is we always talk about trying to over communicate. You can't seem to do too much of it. So your opportunities are probably limited or have changed because everybody's working remotely and off site and here and there and everywhere. And so you just have to be a little more strategic about it. I'll say a couple of things related to how we are delivering our communication. One, let's use technology, since we keep talking about that as a theme through the pandemic. We pushed forward what probably we would have done in the next year or two, the Office 365, specifically the Teams platform. We pushed that to this year, totally because of the pandemic. And so Teams has become an effective way for us to have at least, if we're going to be chatting and we're not in the same building, we can connect by video and have some feel for how someone's doing, how their day is going, because we can see the expression on their face. We also have gotten pretty good, pretty quick at setting up channels within Teams so that departments can communicate and can go over here and work on a project and use the Teams platform. So that's the tech part of it. The other part of it is it just gets back to just good old fashioned having conversations. So what I'm finding myself doing, I find that I am trying to use email a lot less. And I'm working harder to pick up the phone because I don't see people all the time. I was in the Appleton office this morning and I was coming up to Green Bay to then jump on this call. And so I use that drive time to just check in. I put a call out to one of our young guys that, quite honestly, I haven't had any contact with the last couple of weeks. He's been out, I've been out, back and forth. So I try to reach out to people and just see what's going on, see if they need anything. It's nothing special. It's just doing what we should be doing, right? Having conversations. And I think let's use this as a push to eliminate email as much as possible. Let's have either a real conversation as much as we can virtually where we can see each other. Pick up the damn phone and let's start talking to people again.
I've also noticed that you can really see people's expression too when you use this technology. I mean, you can tune in on their face. When you're in a group meeting with a group of folks, you're not like staring at someone's face, to see the reaction. You're kind of looking at them and then you're looking off to the side and you're looking at them. I mean, in Zoom or in any of these technologies, you're looking right at them and you can tell, just from their subtleties of their face, how they're feeling about things. And at Prophit Co, we talk about that. Like, we're like, I can tell you're not aligned right now. Your face isn't telling me you're aligned, and that's okay.
Right.
Speak your truth.
Yeah.
Speak your truth.
Yep.
Let's move on to our next subject. We are talking about the subject of coping. Cope adequately. I think this is often overlooked, that it's our job as leaders to help our teams cope. I mean, yes, there's certainly personal responsibility if you have to help yourself cope first, right? But there are people that really struggle out there. Even before the pandemic, there's a lot more depression than there's ever been. There's just a lot of more anxiety than there's ever been in people's lives. And I believe as leaders, we have to address that and talk about it and help folks through it. I mean, I'm a true believer that to be a great leader is to help people feel safe in the environment. That doesn't mean they get away with things or they're not held responsible for their duty, but to feel safe in how you communicate improvement, how you communicate praise, even everything. We have to cope adequately. That's key. By the way, before we go on, there is a Q&A section in here. You can see on the bottom, I believe in your Zoom, there's Q&A. You can start asking questions in April. We'll look at those questions because we'll have a little Q&A at the end if you have Any questions for myself or any of our panelists? We want to make sure that you're aware that that is available at the end. So let's talk about coping adequately. You know, we're all like trees, and deep within the roots are our values, and deep within the roots are our coping mechanisms. And you can tell when you see a person if they're fruitful and if they're abundant by their attitude, by their poise, by how they speak. And that's all about self-worth and patience and security and gratitude, your health, your confidence, acceptance, the ability to accept a situation, calmness and responsibility, versus folks who are stuck in anxiety and contempt and guilt. They just kind of wilt, right? They just kind of wilt. And I believe as leaders, we have to get after the roots of people, that it's okay to go there with people when they're wilting a little bit. We all do, and it's all about coping. You could have children that are struggling learning, right? And now you're trying to teach them at home, and they don't have a teacher there, so now they struggle with everything. We don't know what people are up against, and so coping adequately, I think, is a really big part of the plan to build organizational health. And so I'll start with Joanna. As leaders, what are some methods you have used to help yourself and your employees cope with our current reality?
Well, Jay, I think one of the biggest things here for us was the communication as far as coping. And I remember in the beginning time, you had done the seminar on words mattering.
Yeah.
And I think it was a couple days later, and one of my attorney friends had also done a seminar about the importance of clear communication. And one of the things that really stuck with me, he said, the leaders, it's now more important than ever that in everything we do, we are calm, thoughtful, and deliberate. And that was so important, and it stuck with me so much that I thought about your words mattering, and I shared that with our leadership team, because we were seeing the people are looking to the leadership in the times of uncertainty and the times of crisis. They're looking at us to see what we're doing and how we're interacting with other people, how we're reacting to situations. And I think I reminded them it's so important right now to be a great example and to be strong for the group, because we need everybody to come in and pitch in and do what we need to get done. And I remember one of the biggest moments for us was there were some rumors going around about someone that was sick, that someone had gone to the hospital, someone may have died. And we heard this, and I had one of the managers came in one day and said, our packing department has stopped working and you need to fix it. So we just ran out there, and I took my assistant with me. I speak Spanish as well, but I told her, look, I'm gonna talk and then you can translate exactly what I say, and we're gonna tell these people what happened. Because we had a lady that was sick that had come to the front office, and after we spoke with the doctor, he recommended that she come to the hospital, but it was not COVID related at all. But somewhere between that time and a few minutes, this had come that there was a rumor that this was going on, and our people were so scared because they thought someone with COVID had been sick and contaminated the area. So we got everyone together and quickly talked to them. And I distinctly remember telling them, we will be communicating with you. Everything that we find out, we will share with you right away. And we reassured them about what had happened. And I never will forget this. Collectively, there was a sigh of relief across the group. I just saw everyone's body, relax. And we had masks on, we were spread out, but at that moment, and they realized, and I thought, this is so important. And I hope that our leaders remember about this time, and they remember these things that we've got to make sure that we're communicating clearly, because these are the things that will get us through these times. And we've got to, keep in touch with our people. And something really cool that happened as well. We've kind of become the coronavirus coordinators, is what I call it. And we check in with everyone on their symptoms because we have to make sure everyone's okay to come to work, and that's constantly changing. But during that process, we've become more engaged with people. And I think our leaders have as well, because in asking those questions about how are you, we also ask about their families and things like that. And so it's kind of become a little bit more engaging and interactive conversations. And I think they realize that that's something that they weren't doing before. And now that they're required to do it, but I said, why don't we use that to help us engage a little bit more with the employees and get them involved? So I think that they feel a little bit more caring and genuine hearing from all of the leadership, and I hope that that continues. So that's been something good that's come out of all of this.
So Joanna, what were those 3 words about communication that your friend shared with you?
Calm, thoughtful, and deliberate.
I'm writing that down. Calm, thoughtful,
I have it on my desk here.
deliberate. Yeah, it's so easy as to react, right? As leaders, we say this, say that, and we do have to stay calm, thoughtful, and deliberate because our roots can affect other people's, right? About just staying calm and acceptance. Dan, around this topic, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, listen, I don't have a huge 500 member team that Joanna has. For me, it's been, more of coping around everyone being at home, so my space got invaded, which is a little different than the larger businesses. So, my family's here, my daughter's school is now homeschooled. So for me, it's been kind of trying to create definitions around space and business, and then also in order to stay engaged properly with myself and keep all that a part of it, we're also doing things together. So it's a balance, right? It's making sure we don't just get sucked into the home office space and work there till 10 o'clock every night, but also getting out, and for those of us that are in Northeast Wisconsin that have had the most incredible warm weather for the last couple of weeks, making sure we get out before the cold comes in, and taking the dogs for a walk, but doing that with the family, seeing we're all around each other. So I would say it's learning how to balance how my space has been basically altered because I had everything to myself working from home for the past 45 years to having everyone else at home and in my space. So it's been balancing for me, and that's been really working well, is to respect each other's boundaries and also communicate with each other what I've got to do when I've got a certain call, when they've got a call to be on. So I'd say that's how we've coped with our new reality.
Thank you, Dan. And Paul, in our pre-call, you shared that you're helping employees cope by giving them a little bit of love in their pocketbook too. Tell us about that.
Well, we've been fortunate that the company was in a position to do some things this year, but I think there's so much stress, and early on, I did not want people to have financial stress layered over everything else that was going on. Not to mention, we don't know, our spouses being impacted and things
Right.
like that. So, we did some things. Some things were rather simple when we are essential as well. So I speak about remote, but we have folks that there's certain things you can't be a teller from your house. So we have folks that have had to go to the bank every day. And we bought lunches for people every day during the early days of the pandemic, so they didn't have to go out. And at that time, everybody's a little worried about, can you go out and come back to the bank? So we brought in lunches. We were fortunate enough, everybody's very blessed that the company was able to pay out a bonus here mid-year to honor them for some very long days, long hours. With some of the work that had to get done around that PPP program, for example. So those are great. I'm glad to work for a company that can do things like that. And then I think a lot of it, you say, how do you cope with reality was the question, and helping people get through it and helping people cope. One, my personal decision was just simply to come out of this. If I'm going to live through the pain of this 2020, I'm going to come out of it a better version of myself. At least I'll try and work on some things. I love the calm, thoughtful, and deliberate. Anybody who knows me knows that those are things that I think about. I want to be more patient, so I'm working on it. And I think there's silver linings in all of this. And I know we all have found those. And if you haven't, keep looking. They're there. It could be more time with your family at night. Just simple little things that matter, and staying on what you can control. The money thing you brought up, Joe, that's great. I mean, financial security, those things are fun and nice to have. But when I'm in the building, I try to go for a walk and have a conversation with just about everybody. And it's just the little things. And so again, this caused me to slow down, relax a little bit more, take that time, walk around the building, meet with people. And again, I'm like everybody else. I'm just trying to get to be a better version of who I am, and maybe the pandemic's pushing that forward a little bit more. But it's that's okay. It's progress.
Well, and you're right. It's always just try to get a little better every day. Am I where I want to be? No, but I'm better than I was, and that is the attitude. Let's move on to our next topic. All right, let's talk about change appropriately. So, with in Lencioni's book, The Advantage, he talks about the 3 biases around organizational health and creating this change, right? And some of you may be new to the subject. Maybe you have a department. You go, what can I do within my department because I don't own the company? Or perhaps you're in a position where Paul's at, where he can pull the strings he needs to pull, being the head of the organization, right? And having that ability to make it happen, but wondering, how do I get started? What should I expect? And so I thought I'd share Lencioni's 3 biases that he's come across when starting a journey of organizational health. And then I'm going to turn over to our panelists on if they had any of these biases and so forth. So we'll set them up first this way. There's a sophistication bias that for any organization to improve health, it's got to be sophisticated and complicated. And the reality is it really isn't. You've already heard some great ideas of what has been done. Joanna approaching the situation and talking directly. Paul walking around more and just connecting with people and being aware of where they're at. It's not complicated, but it is a focus. It has to be deliberate, calm, thoughtful, deliberate. And I think deliberate is the magic word there. Another thing folks are biased around organizational health is that, let's get started. It's got to happen fast. Like, woo! I know I have an adrenaline bias. Like, I'm gonna put effort towards something and energy and treasures towards something. I want to see something happening now. And the reality is, it's like your health. If we're gonna go say, I'm gonna get healthy, Joe. All right, you want to get healthy? Okay, let's start with running a marathon. No, it's not going to happen. I got to first get around the block, right? And then once you've done a workout, let's say I've got a workout person helping me work out, right? I got my trainer. I've done my hour of things that the trainer asked me to do. Am I done? Am I healthy now? No. Now do a little bit more. Keep doing it. Get it in your game, and that's really what this is. It's a journey. It's not a short race. And then the quantification bias, it must show hard metrics for growth. Sometimes organizational health is difficult to gauge metrics unless you're going through it. Unless you see the person who is defensive in a meeting not become defensive anymore, become cooperative. When you see teams lining up to work an initiative through over time where they didn't have that type of collaboration before, because of the deliberate focus on how we're going to unite people, put the right people in the right seats around the right agenda, around the right goal. And so quantification is often a mystery when it comes to organizational health. And so I'd like to begin with you, Paul. First of all, even when we met, we're talking about purpose and culture, and I have a feeling you weren't. I know you have adrenaline in you, Paul. I'm not sure. I think you've always been slow and steady wins a race. That was what I vibed with you. But maybe even before you met us, what was your biases like when you started? And what evidence would you say that organizational health program is working?
I probably had all 3. And when I look at them, I wrote some notes to myself, about it being complicated, but it's not. And I'm just from an advice standpoint, it's not. Just be yourself, be consistent. Once you have an idea of what you want to accomplish, you and your leadership team, just be consistent. The adrenaline bias, that's probably my Achilles heel about things moving fast. To steal from our favorite quarterback, relax. It is a journey. It is. And you'll get there. And the hard metrics, identify small wins, recognize them, celebrate them. They add up. And that's the journey piece of it. The small wins and that I would call even really big wins, just the little things that, you see a conversation being had that wouldn't have been had a few years ago. You see, especially Lencioni, who talks so much about team, primary team, the dysfunctions of team. Our teams put a lot of effort into this as well, not just individually and to drive culture, but for us to be a really good primary team. And it's, we've been working on this for a few years. You see it in the boardroom, you feel it. It's hard to quantify, but you just know you had a meeting you wouldn't have had 3 years ago. And it's an aha moment. You identify it very quickly because it looks and feels and sounds different. So that's it. It's just sometimes just walking the halls and the kind of conversations and the feedback that people are willing to give each other. Is it perfect? Of course not. Is it better than it was? Absolutely. And we're I'm a guy who cares about momentum and trending in the right direction. And if you keep trending in the right direction, sky's the limit.
Awesome. Thank you. Joanna, your thoughts on this question?
Yes, so the nature of our business is kind of under the adrenaline bias because we've got so many things going on and everything has to be done right away. So I think sometimes when we try to implement initiatives, people feel like they want to jump in and do it really fast. But sometimes we have to just break down the steps. And I think what Paul said is right. You have to celebrate the little wins, and you can't just jump in and go, okay, we're going to run the marathon now. And I think we've seen that here. One thing interesting when we had to implement, we're still doing wellness checks. It's been a little bit over 5 months. And initially when we started that process, we said, well, how can we get all these people through the door? We have to check their temperature, ask them all of these questions. We can't do that. And we've been doing it. It's not an issue. And it seems so simple now, but we did make it overcomplicated. And I think that's what we tend to do with the things. And our CFO and CEO and owner, he's always very supportive of different initiatives, but he does ask that question. It's the quantification. What is the return on investment of this? And what do you expect? And I think sometimes it's not necessarily something that you can solidly measure. I think that sometimes it's just hard because we see those little steps, but it might not be something that's right on the paper that, did we make this much more money this month, or did we keep this many more people? But it is something that you see, like in that meeting, the person didn't overreact or the person stopped and listened. So I think that's really neat when you can see the little wins and that starts adding up, because it really does make a difference. And I know for some of us here, sometimes we've had the tendency, just because we have just such a desperate need for people that can come to work, that we have tolerated not the best worker, right? But I think through this whole process as well, sometimes we've been able to address those things because we realize, hey, we're missing that person. This is making it hard on my good people. And I'm grateful for them and I don't want to lose them, especially during this time. So they've been leaning in that direction, like we do have to address these issues and take care of those things, and they get respected for that. So I think, again, appreciating the little steps and the wins and making sure that you communicate that with the group and celebrate those.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Dan, I'm going to save you for our next question here, our next topic. Let's get into it. Next, final part of our definition of organizational health is to grow from within, and it begins with you. And Dan, I'd like you to make the focal point of this, because when we met, you were starting this business and you were wondering, it was a marketing conversation, and we started a certain way, and then we really got deep into you, and you really got after you, and you realized this strength within you. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, the part to let others know is that I had been practicing my business for a couple of years, 2.5 years actually, and had beginner's luck, and then realized, oh, I've got to do something here because it wasn't going so great as it was the first time, and it wasn't. I don't know. It was, was it a marketing question? Was it advertising? What did I need to do? And I thought it was all these answers of, how many social media likes can I get, and how many posts can I get, and how many followers can I get. And when we started really looking at it, even to reflect on your last question, I thought it had to be really sophisticated and it had to happen fast. So I think it's funny to realize that no matter what size your business is at, whether it's an independent operation or hundreds and hundreds of people, I think we all face those types of situations where we need to understand how to react to them. So taking the time to reflect on me and actually recognize me, I think can actually convey to all sizes as well, because it comes back to even, I'm in culinary, I'm in food, I've been doing restaurants since I was 16 years old. And there's always been this one leader who was my manager at a restaurant at a national chain. And I was a busboy and I was a server. But while I was bussing tables, I was doing it with one hand and I was just clearing the tables off. And he was a military guy, and he came over and he says to me, he goes, Dan, you're bussing tables and you're a great guy, but you got to go faster and you got two hands. And so it was that kind of like little thing to reflect. You can do more with yourself than you realize, kind of perspective. And then when I kind of lost that, and as you and I started diving deeper into who I am and what the business is, realizing that it is about me, and putting that message about what I stand for out there, that it's about innovation. It's about taking that one thing that you're used to and doing it 5 different ways. And that was really a big trigger for exploring internally, that I knew I had that ability inside of me, and sharing that to my customers in a very consistent message, so they understood that I wasn't trying to be something I'm not. And kind of, I think Paul hit it, it's about being yourself. But you got to recognize yourself too. And I think that was the piece. I felt as a small independent operator, I had to be bigger than what I am, but I don't. I just have to be me, and I have to deliver on what I tell my customers I'll deliver on. And when you see those opportunities come open, you jump at them with both feet or both hands, and you take advantage of what's in front of you and make the most of it. And it will happen, and it will become a part of that journey. And I look back, I've said this today to myself, possibly thinking subliminally about this conference here, being a part of this panel, is I have a meeting, this week with someone who is a colleague of mine that's doing something far different, but our worlds collide. And I know just a couple of years ago, we probably wouldn't be having that conversation if I hadn't worked on myself and figured out how to share who I am to the rest of my opportunities.
Wow, thank you for that, Dan. It's not just, from your perspective as a single entrepreneur sharing yourself with the world, but think about just leadership. As leaders, we have to share ourselves with the world, and our world is our direct employees, stepping into us. A lot of times we hold ourselves back. I know I did. I've held myself back until I really explored why. And it just unleashes you. We all have a personal purpose in life. We all have a reason to be here, and it can be pulled out. It can be pulled out and discovered. And when it is, it's very freeing and very empowering for an individual to just be who they are, just live who you are and tell people who you are in a non-arrogant, but a healthy, prideful way, because we're all unique. Final question, Grow From Within. Then we're going to take any questions we have out there. So April, be prepared to share any topics for anyone. We'll let you take over after we finish up here. But Joanna, what has your team taught you And how has that helped you grow from within with these powerful stories? I think, you shared some stories already. They're very powerful of people coming together. Tell me about that. What did you learn
Well,
from that?
I have seen a lot of the really, really good in a lot of our people. And as I mentioned before, we've seen some a little bit bad too. You see both, but it reminds me of it that we just have such great people here. And I was talking with one of our ladies the other day. She's been working in packing, I think, over 25 years. And so we were just talking, and she said, "Yeah, I'm just so grateful to have a job right now." And I thought, how we have sometimes we get so frustrated because we're trying to hire people and people disappoint. And I had a joke with my team and the managers. I said, I'm putting a, a poster up, little white right on wipe off board right on my wall. I said, days without disappointment, and it's still 0, because we had some of these things happen, and I'm like 0 again. But then we have things that balance it out. And then when she said that, she continued on, she said she's got family that lives in Chicago, and a lot of them are working in the restaurant business, and everything's closed. It's downtown, and I thought, wow, her family, and I wasn't really thinking, we think about the people whose families are here, but then families that are in other places, that they're being affected differently. But I thought, I think a lot of our employees are grateful. And last week we had an awesome opportunity to have this big luncheon with spaced out tables and spaced out lines, but we had lunches for all of our employees, and then we also gave them a special gift, and they were so appreciative. And I know every time we've done that over the years, we have some people that say thank you. We have people that complain because they complain about everything. But it was so neat, because I feel like this was the most grateful that the people had been. And it was awesome to see that. And that made me feel good too. Like sometimes I feel like, do we do these things, and they're gonna complain about the food, and they're gonna say, oh, we don't like the color of the t-shirt. And then you just go with it. Some people are happy, right? But I thought that really warmed my heart, because I thought, wow, all these people were saying thank you. Even one of our grumpiest employees said thank you for the gift. And I thought, man, we have done well today, because they're happy. But I really think they're very grateful, because I think they realize a lot of people in their families and a lot of people that they know may not have jobs and may still not be working. And I think it's been a little tough sometimes to get through, and they might have worked extra days, but I think overall it's grateful. So I think I've learned that I need to be grateful too, because sometimes when you're going and working and you keep going and you think, am I making a difference? Is this even, worthwhile? And then when those people come to you and say those things, and that, I appreciate you, or you helped me out with this, and then I realize I need to be grateful too, and then I am making a difference.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And Paul, finally, what have you learned about yourself as you've gone through just the organizational health journey? Just, for the last 5 years, what have you learned about yourself going through this journey?
Yeah, I was fortunate to go through a 360 process with the entire team a couple of years ago. So it's it was fortunate. If you've never gone through one, do it. If you get the opportunity, it's not easy, but what Dan said, it's about being yourself, but you have to know yourself, and you have to, I think, you have to also know what other people, how do they, what version of yourself do they view? What are you accidentally tripping into? I think we all have great intentions, but I think sometimes our actions, or especially our actions and behaviors on a bad day, aren't aligned with our great intentions. And so they being the team, did a great job of pointing those things out. Constructive feedback, I mean constructive. But I also realized through the process that they're cheering for me. They want me to succeed. And so you take that and realize I'm not letting anybody down, let alone myself. And you really want to start working on some things. And you want to get to a spot where you have more of the consistency and the pace and the tempo. So I just learned that I'm capable of growth, and I like the things I'm working on, and I like getting into a spot that is maybe the spot I always didn't get to in the past. It's just, again, if I keep using the term better version of myself, I don't know. It's just trying to improve.
Yeah.
Just trying to be me, but trying to get better.
That is so cool. I love how you say accidentally tripping into You're right. We actually trip into things.
Nobody wakes up in the morning trying flat out to be a you know what.
Yeah.
Nobody's trying, right? Nobody is. I mean, we all have good intentions. It's a fact. Outside of a very few, right?
Right.
We all have really, really good intentions and just different things. It could be stress points. There are different things that just cause us to get misaligned. So we have to do that. We have to appreciate each other and understand each other. And even Joe and you and I might be having a conversation, and maybe, maybe you're caught at a bad time and you're just not the Joe I know, but I've got to know that and just say, cool, what, let's work our way through it.
Yeah. And you can't read your label from inside your own bottle. So when you did your 360 review, we call that a leadership uncovery. Man, people let you know in a kind way too. I've noticed. I mean, they're not like, that person does this. They're like, hey, can you let them know this? Can you let them know?
It's so true. So true. They're not rooting against you. They're telling you, buddy, we love you, but let's get here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Before we get into just your questions, if you have any, and pass this off to April, please join us on social media. You can watch this program on our right on our website at prophit.com, PROPHIT.com. And also there's articles all around the organizational health and all the 4 pillars throughout our site. So there's resources there for you. You're also going to be included on the International Servant Leadership sends as well. That's coming up in June if they have it, but there is an International Servant Leadership Conference actually coming up in Milwaukee. So I'm going to end show here and go to the dialogue with April. April, any questions for anyone here, our panelists?
Yes, I just have one question for us, and I think it's a great one to have here at the end. Such incredible information that we heard today. But the question is, so what does the future look like for you? And in other words, how are you guys looking at the next steps for your companies, for your people? What does it look like moving forward?
Who would like to start with that one?
I'll jump on that. Again, we're a smaller company, 30 plus employees, moving toward 40. We've got a relatively young leadership team that we've assembled over the last probably 4 to 5 years. So we're very deep in leadership development, but we're taking it to the next level. So for us, it's about cultivating talent management, and it's about bringing leadership development at all levels of the company. I'm almost taking that approach that everybody's a leader. We care so much. We, as a small company, we did like most small companies do. Joanna, you'll appreciate this. HR just landed on our CFO, and that's that's not right. That's classic, and it's not perfect. It works when you're smaller. We just hired a chief talent officer, and her charge is going to be around not just the talent piece, but really culture as well, making sure that we've got the right culture, working closely with marketing to make sure that we're branding it internally and externally. So for us, it's just building out what we've already started and starting to add key leaders in key roles, and making sure that in this case, the HR function is elevated at the highest of levels as well. So that everybody understands how important we know the future. When we talk, you heard me say relevant. You're going to hear that a lot if you chat with me. If we're going to stay relevant, we know it's a couple of things. It's talent, it's technology, it's culture. Those are the things that we're focused on, and we're just going to bring in leadership to help drive that.
Awesome. Joanna.
We also are working on building and continuing to build bench strength. We have a lot of people retiring, I'd say over the next, even less than 5, but next 5 to 10 years, definitely. And we've continued to put people in the pipeline to continue to grow. We've had some great success with our program called Management Trainee. And this is where a person that has a 4-year degree comes in, maybe in one of the related fields, and learns very detailed about each of the departments and the mushroom growing process and harvesting and packaging and fitment and everything, all areas. And right now we have someone that's got a degree in the biology field, and she's super excited about growing, but she's ready to go to the other areas. So we're working on that as well. And then I'm really excited. We have some amazing automation from our engineering and CPI team. And that's going to really help us a lot, as we do have some of our harvesters retiring and our packers retiring. And it's not intended to replace, because we still will need people, of course, but that will help alleviate a lot of the stress on them, as they are able to maybe not have to work the extra day or the extra hours into the night. So we're super excited about that. So I think it's a combination of both that talent and technology, and then building leadership as well. So we're excited about to see what's next.
All right, thank you. Dan, any thoughts?
Yeah, I guess just to wrap it up, if we're to look at what the future holds in regards to AR conversations, to the work I've put into myself and the business, I think the most exciting part of that is that there is a future, and that along with that, I've actually been able to take this messaging and this understanding and internal knowledge of who I am, and relay that to others. So I feel there's a lot of growth potential within what I'm developing and expanding conversations with other chefs. So let me just pause for a minute. When I say chef, I don't want everyone to think that we're all restaurant chefs. Most of us have been there. We're talking about chefs that work for your global manufacturers that are developing flavors and creating applications that scale up to thousands of pounds of product to be manufactured. So there's quite a network of us chefs. And, this whole dilemma of the pandemic is hit the food service industry greatly. I'm sure Joanna's seen it. Retail sky high has gone great, food service down. But even with all that happening, we're all looking for new ways to collaborate, and no one's going to want to collaborate with you if you don't have the right attitude. And so for me, I just see 2020 the end of it, and 2021 to be a great deal of opportunity to help form how people think about food and how they eat food, for the rest of their lives. So I'm very, very optimistic in general, but I'm very pumped about what's going to happen in the future for myself and for all of us.
Well, thank you. And I can't, when you talk about just staying positive and being grateful, I think that is the key to anything moving forward. I know personally, our organization is just so excited to step into the organizational health realm and just help folks meet them where they're at and help them move on to the next level. And that's what it's really all about. It's helping people, right? I mean, you want to know how to be successful in life? Help someone become successful, right? You want to become successful? Help another person. You want your business to grow? Help another person. And that is what everyone in this room, everyone on the Zoom is all about. And I know that everyone tuning in would be all about that, because you wouldn't be here if you didn't believe these things. Well, thanks again for these conversations, you guys. Obviously, the future is bright when we have leaders like you in the world, bringing hope to people everywhere, and those of you tuned in as well, taking a personal interest in learning more about organizational health, about leadership, with self-reflection, and helping organizations thrive and stay alive. So we're going to continue these conversations, and we'll let you know in first quarter when our next Servant Leaders of Wisconsin session is. But thanks for tuning in. Connect with us on social, and you guys have a great rest of your day. See you, everyone.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks a lot, Joe.
Sure.
See you guys.
Thanks, everybody.